Hello and welcome to a post-mortem of an organised games jam by Robert Newman. During this presentation I'll be looking back at Ludum Dare 40, how I put together my team for the jam, what extra organisation and production skills I put in place before the jam and how they worked during the jam. I shall also be looking at what went well, what went wrong and what we could improve for next time, as well as an overall of how the game performed after the jam. So first a little bit about Ludum Dare in case people aren't familiar. It takes place every 4 months. It's an international jam. It's split into two types of entries, which is a little different from a lot of the jams I've seen before. You have the compo, which is a single person with just 48 hours to make their game. Or you have the jam, which is as many people as you like in a team and up to 72 hours. The theme is voted on from suggestions submitted by members. The games are played and rated by other entrants after the jam is finished. And your games are rated in 8 categories out of 5 stars. The reasoning for this organised games jam is I wanted to use my production skills. I wanted to show off what I'd learned and what I'd put into place through my time at university, but I wanted to do it where I was solely focused on production and not having to do some design and some UI and help the tech team out. I just wanted to be solely a producer. The previous jams I've done and I've heard of my teammates had done where there's no organisation, there's no one leading those teams, and I wanted to show that there was a different way of running them. I wanted to prove that crunch and no sleep was not the only option, that sleeping under your desk for 10 minutes and then hitting it again is not going to lead you to more productivity, that going home, getting a good night's sleep and coming back again the next day is actually the best option. I wanted to work with a hand-picked team of my peers. I wanted them to have that same mentality as me where they were there to get the best out of themselves and they were willing to try new things and willing to listen to get the best game we could. I wanted to show a positive way of running a jam team. I wanted to dispel some of the negativity about jams, about the crunch and about falling out with people, about shoddy code and not getting a game at the end of it. I wanted to show that you could if you just had a little bit of prep and a little bit of organisation. And then I wanted to produce a fun game that the team was proud of. And that's what we all should be doing at a jam. That's what you're there for. It's you're learning and you're producing something fun. Now is just to assemble my dream team. I knew I was going to have a producer, I was going to have 3 artists, 3 techs and 2 designers. I thought that gave me a balanced team for the weekend. Obviously the simple producer was going to be me. The tech team was pretty quick to fill. I had worked with Thane in the first year. He had worked with Connor in the second year and I knew how good his work was. And Amanda I'd seen throughout the 3 years and had seen the quality of her work, so I was happy to have those 3 in and they were all happy to join and were willing to work with the extra production. Same with design. I'd worked with Tom throughout the last 3 years and I knew how good his work was. Again, I knew he'd be happy to work with the production and I'd get some good work from him. He also said he didn't think he needed an extra designer, so I agreed to scrap that position. Art, I asked my junior senior lead artist John Tranner. His work was amazing. I knew how quickly he could work, and also I had 2 junior artists in mind, so I knew how well John could work with junior artists after seeing him in our group. But they shall remain unnamed for this because on the eve of the jam, after numerous messages, artist number 1 dropped out saying he was too busy, and unnamed artist 2 just never ever contacted me again. So the pre-planning that went into the jam, I decided beforehand that we would only work from 10 AM till 10 PM each day. I did say that if people wanted to stay a bit later and work an extra they could, but as long as they were back in at 10 AM the next day, that was fine. So this was no crunch. Obviously it's still a long day, but with a lunch break and a dinner break and obviously a bit of time in between, if you wanted to go out and grab fresh air, they were more than happy to do that. I put into place a daily plan, so each day was broken up so they knew exactly what they were doing at any one point. It was fluid and could change, so it wasn't set in stone, but you could see what the day would look like. We were using sprints for an agile methodology, so these sprints were different lengths of time, whereas normally you'd sprint would be like 2 to 3 weeks and then you'd review. We were actually doing it in 5 hours to start with and then a review and then 5 hours again on the first day, and then I think the next day there was a couple of 4s or a 3, and then on the last day there was a couple of 3s, and then it was little sprints for the home stretch. We also did regular play sessions. These kind of worked with conjunction with the sprints. So at the end of a sprint, we would test, we would review, and we'd plan what we were going to do in the next sprint. And obviously, then you'd repeat every time. We also had a Trello set up with a whiteboard as well, which we had most of the same stuff on it. Source control to share the master file, and a G drive for sharing assets and other work that people had done. All of which were set up beforehand and were used during the jam. So what did I feel went well at the Games Jam? The team was a massive positive for a team that never worked together before. They took on board all the extra production and organisation that I put in place. They were positive about it, and they were hardworking and never complained, and just kind of were open to the things I'd put in place. The initial planning of the game went better than I'd hoped, so I set aside 2 hours for the initial planning of when you got the theme and what you discussed about what you were going to do. And in the first 30 minutes, with a little bit of prodding, the team had got like 2 or 3 viable ideas to choose from, despite it being a difficult theme. And by the end of the first hour, they'd picked what game they were going to do, and we'd broken it down into tasks, and kind of we knew what we were going to do for this first sprint, and everything was in place, and we were off to a flying start. Source control was a massive success. Only 2 members of the group had ever used it before, so it was new to a lot of people, and it led to a little bit of a bumpy start. But once everyone got the hang of it, I think it was huge, and I know that a few of us have gone back into other groups and have implemented source tree and source control, so it was a huge success. I've already mentioned the team, but how they adapted to losing those 2 members at the start was a great thing to see. There was no sulking or being bitter or getting angry about the people who dropped out. They kind of just talked about the solutions and how we could go about simplifying the art style, or where we could get, some of them knew where we could get free assets from, and that was just great to see. The bug list I put together, so we had 3 types of bugs. We had a red bug, which was major game breaking bugs. We had an orange bug for middle of the road bugs, and then we had green bugs, which were just kind of little fixes. And using the whiteboard and putting these on there all the time and keeping it flowing and keeping it up to date was just really successful, and it was a good way of keeping track of what we were doing, and it was perfect for a games jam. What went wrong with the games jam? So the dropout and the no-show, obviously having 2 people out of a 3-man art team not turning up isn't ideal. The night before the jam as well, to find out one isn't coming and one not to contact me back. I had made plans and contingencies, but on the last second there's not really much I could do about getting someone else in. But the reason I had asked John to do the jam is because I knew how strong he was, and I knew that he could, if we kept the art style simple, he'd be able to knock out a lot of work quite quickly and would be happy to work on his own as well. We also knew that if we needed character modelled, he could do that if it was simple, and we'd be able to then import into something like Mixamo, which would rig it and then be able to download a couple of animations from there if we needed to. Playtesting with source control. Now, source control was a massive success, but because I didn't really know what I was doing with it, and the team was still kind of new to having multiple people using source control, we did have some kind of merge issues kind of around the first few playtests, which kind of wasted time, because you should have been starting the playtest, yet we had half hour of having to find out whose build was the right build, and kind of merging branches when we should have kind of been playtesting. Now, we didn't lose hours upon hours, we maybe lost an hour and a bit at the total, but obviously that's time we could have been developing, so we got better at it, but at the start it did cause an issue. The team left before the game was packaged. This is 100% my fault. I should have made everyone hang on. We did have someone who was travelling back up to Manchester way. We also had someone who was getting picked up, so kind of I said yeah go, and then there was a couple of small build issues, and there was just one tech who'd stayed with me, and he ended up staying for an hour and a half, and in 2 hours helping me fix these issues, whereas if everyone had been there it probably would have been half an hour. But in the end it's not huge issues that happened, which is the same with the whole thing, because it was mainly a hugely successful weekend, but these are just little things that I can learn from for next time. What would I do differently next time? I won't take on artists I've had no interaction with or never worked with before, unless they become recommended to me by someone I have worked with and knows how I work and the standards at which I work to. It's just not fair on the team that I put together if some of them don't turn up, so I'll learn from this mistake and be more selective in my recruitment next time. Trello was not used by the entire group. Now, Trello is only as good as if everyone uses it, so by not having everyone use it, it kind of became a bit redundant. The whiteboard we were using may have been enough just for a games jam. Trello would definitely be better if we were doing it over a distance, or if there was more people and I need to keep track of exactly what everyone was up to. Having a second designer who was more level design focused. This was on me, I agreed to get rid of the designer, but having one focus on mechanics and UI elements would give us more someone who could focus on the level. A strong tech team we had meant we had a larger scope, which meant the one designer got a bit overwhelmed at times. Finally, we come to the results section. Now, it's okay to talk about all these production skills and how they would improve a jam, but the proof is in the game we made. So there was 3,000 submissions for Ludum Dare this year, of which the jam, which is what we entered, there was 1,850 games submitted. And now I can show you how our game performed against them. Overall, we finished 88th out of 1,850 games. For the fun category, we finished 89th. Innovation was 171st. The theme was 108th. The graphics was 190th. Humour was 36th. And the mood of our game was 109th overall. We did not score in one category, and that's because we opted out of it, and that's the sound. And because we downloaded a lot of it from the internet, free sounds, we decided not to opt into that category. I'm massively proud of the team for what they achieved. They beat all my expectations for this jam. They took on everything that I suggested we could do, and they embraced it and worked with it and produced a game that I can honestly say everyone is proud of. And that's the end of my presentation on an organised games jam. Thank you so much for listening. I hope I've inspired some of you to go out and try and organise games jam yourself, or just add some production or a producer to your teams. If you'd like to check out the game the team made, you can see a link below for a video, or also a link to download a playable version of the game. You can find me on my website, which is on screen now, and thanks again for listening.